has the threat when it comes to nuclear in particular, given the Iranians abandoning any stoppage of their program, has it increased?
Well, clearly, their step away from the nuclear constraints is unhelpful. But I do want to emphasize what was actually announced. In particular, the foreign minister of Iran, Zarif, noted two things that are important. One, that all the steps they've taken, including the new ones, are reversible. So they have left that off-ramp for getting back to full implementation. But even more important, in my view, is we've always said right from the beginning that the most important part of the agreement is the verification measures that give confidence to the international community. And Zarif made it clear that they intend to maintain their new relationship with the international inspectors. Those inspectors have in turn said that up to now, at least, they have been true to their word. Of course, we'll see what happens going forward. But the verification is very, very important to make sure no matter what they do on the nuclear front, it is not diverted to a nuclear weapons program.
Right. So do you agree or disagree with that we're in sort of uncharted territory, though, as it goes in terms of the relationship between the U.S. and Iran and, frankly, the Iranian nuclear deal, so to speak, the JCPOA that we're no longer a part of, but they seem to be honoring previously?
Yes, we are going into a period of obviously tremendous uncertainty. We've already been in a period of great uncertainty following the U.S. withdrawal, as Iran has taken, I have to say, up to now, measured steps away from the implementation. But clearly, we don't really know what the reaction or the response will be to the Soleimani killing. We don't know how that will impact something of great relevance in this program, energy prices going forward. We don't know if Iraq will follow through on requiring U.S. troops to leave that country, which would, of course, create another tremendous instability, not to mention the fact that we are, frankly, a counterweight in Iraq to Iranian influence there, and a key to addressing ISIS. So we have a lot of uncertainties here, and until, frankly, as the chairman of our Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley, has said, the ball is, in a certain sense, in Iran's court, and we will not have these uncertainties resolved, certainly until we see what their response actually is.
So I know that you said we don't know what their response is. What could it be? Are we looking at something like a cyber attack or military action? What should we be prepared for?
Well, I think you're implying exactly the right thing, that they have many, many options in terms of what they could do. It could be something, of course, using their militias in various countries, including Iraq. It could be a cyber attack. One of the outcomes that would be greatly in their geopolitical benefit would be, in fact, if the United States is driven out of Iraq and or has its prerogatives severely curtailed because of this. So there are lots of different dimensions. And by the way, there's no. It's also possible that their responses could be outside the region entirely. And another one, of course, would be the possibility of tensions and actions arising again involving Israel. So there are just many, many options, and at least to my knowledge, we really don't have a very good handle on which triggers might be pulled.
Get back to the energy markets for a moment. Oil has obviously moved up, though not that much. It's a different world than it was even 10 years ago, let alone 20, as you well know, Secretary, given we are now the swing producer when it comes to production of oil as the largest single producer in the world. Are you surprised at the muted response in the oil markets, or is that something you would have expected?
Well, I think the size of the response, I think, can be reasonably expected. At least up to now. It reflects the uncertainty, but but we also understand that if, for example, strong actions were taken, a new tanker war, for example, in the Gulf, the hurt would go around, including to Iran, that does continue to evade some of the oil sanctions. Iraq would be severely hit in terms of oil revenue, in addition to Saudi Arabia, Emirates, and the like. So there would be implications that, in some sense, cut both ways. But it's also the case, we should remember, that if disruptions are relatively modest, a couple of million barrels a day, through the International Energy Agency and our own Strategic Petroleum Reserve, we certainly could fill such a gap for a fair amount of time. However, if there's really a major stoppage of oil flow out of the Gulf, that would clearly send oil prices very, very high in a short time. So once again, uncertainty reflected in the move up of oil prices, and I might add, I would say gold prices as well, but a wait-and-see attitude, I think, still applies.
Secretary, what do you make of the signal that this assassination may send to some of our other adversaries, North Korea, Russia, about our president and administration willing to take pretty decisive action without a lot of warning?
Well, for one thing, I think the evolution of how the administration presents to Congress and presents publicly the rationale for action being taken at this time will be very important, because that could be a distinction between an understandable military action and an impulsive one. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty on this side as well until the administration provides more of a justification. However, what you've raised is that we can't forget that as serious as this is, we have other very important issues to deal with Russia, with North Korea, all issues in which our relationship to our allies is absolutely critical. Obviously, we all know, for many reasons, including with our NATO allies, the activities of the last few years have severely impacted the relationship with our allies. We need to pay attention to those and keep them in good form.